You felt it before. Not a fight, not an argument, just a strange chill in the room. Something is off, and you can't explain why. Smiles arrive a little too late. Someone switches the subject the moment you start talking. The laughter sounds hollow, just slightly wrong. You go home and replay the whole thing in your head. You didn't do anything wrong. So why does it feel like people are pulling away? Here's what nobody tells you. It probably has nothing to do with what you did. What you're sensing is one of the oldest patterns in all of human psychology. A pattern that Carl Jung spent his whole career studying and warning people about. Once you understand it, everything changes. Not because life gets easier, but because you finally stop blaming yourself. So let's talk about what's really going on. Why your growth makes you a target. Why your awareness makes people uncomfortable. And why the most honest version of you will always quietly threaten certain people. There's a story I keep thinking about. A man visited Carl Jung in 1938, successful, educated, and convinced that everyone around him was a liar. He had lost almost every relationship in his life. Jung listened carefully. Then he said something the man never expected. You're not seeing their darkness. You're seeing your own. The man was projecting. Every flaw he refused to face in himself. He was seeing it in everyone else instead. The people around him weren't the problem. They were just mirrors. And projection isn't something only troubled people do. We all do it, every single day, without realizing it. Understanding this one thing changes how you see every difficult relationship in your life. To really get this, you need to understand one idea. Jung called it the most important discovery in all of psychology. He called it the shadow. Every person carries two versions of themselves. There's the version you show the world, calm, capable, put together. Jung called this the persona, which literally means mask. And then there's everything else. The shadow is everything you've buried, the anger you hid, the envy you denied, the fear of being ordinary. It's the part of you that didn't make the cut. The shadow isn't evil. It's just the parts of yourself you rejected to keep up the image you prefer. And here's what Jung understood that most people don't want to hear. The shadow never disappears. You can ignore it for years. You can cover it with good behavior and a polished image. But it stays. And when someone in your life pokes at it, even without trying, the reaction comes fast, defensive, angry, and sometimes it looks a lot like hatred. Think about someone who has made you feel quietly unwelcome. Someone who went cold on you without any clear reason. Someone who kept putting you down in ways too subtle to call out directly. Now ask yourself honestly, was there something about you, something you were becoming, that made them uncomfortable? Because the more clearly you see people, the more unsettling your presence becomes to those hiding behind a mask. Not because you say anything, not because you confront anyone, just because you see. And the possibility that you might see through them is enough to trigger a reaction. Jung called this projection. Instead of asking why this person makes me uncomfortable, the mind takes a shortcut. It decides the problem is you. Suddenly you're arrogant, cold, too much, or you've changed. The accusation has nothing to do with you. It's just a shadow looking for somewhere to land. And once projection kicks in, they're no longer reacting to who you are. They're reacting to what you remind them of in themselves. Now let's get specific. This pattern doesn't show up as one big dramatic moment. It shows up in small, quiet ways that build up over time. And the first one is this. You reflect what they've been avoiding. Maybe you've started taking better care of yourself, getting serious about your health, your habits, your future. You're not making a big deal of it. You're just living differently. And slowly, something shifts in certain friendships. The jokes get a little sharper. The comments get a little more dismissive. You've changed. You're too serious now. None of it is direct enough to address, but the pattern is real. What's happening is simple. Your progress has become a mirror. Your consistency reflects their avoidance. Your discipline reflects their excuses. You didn't mean to hold up that mirror, but it's there, and some people can't stand what they see in it. The second way, you represent something they gave up on. Resentment almost never goes downward. It goes upward, toward the person who reminds you of what you could have done but didn't. The friend who finally left the bad relationship. The colleague who actually finishes what they start. The family member who went back to school at 35. Nobody attacks them openly, but their existence quietly challenges every excuse the people around them have made. When you represent a path someone quietly abandoned, you become a problem just by existing. Calling you lucky or arrogant is just the easiest way to make that uncomfortable feeling stop. The third way, you've stopped needing their approval. Most relationships have an invisible balance. One person needs validation. Another needs to feel important. Everyone plays their role, and the system holds together. When you start becoming emotionally independent, when you stop over-explaining yourself, stop seeking approval, something shifts for the people around you. The control they had quietly disappears. And they feel it, even if they can't name it. They don't say I've lost influence over you. They say you've become cold, distant, arrogant. What they're really describing is the moment you stop being manageable. The fourth way, they can't predict you anymore. Manipulation, even the everyday unconscious kind, depends on knowing how you'll react. If I push this button, I get that response. If I criticize you, you try harder. If I guilt you, you apologize. When you stop reacting the way people expect, the script falls apart. You don't take the bait. You don't perform the emotional reaction they were counting on. And that stillness is deeply unsettling to people who rely on those moves. Because it signals something they don't want to admit, that you see what they're doing. And people who need to control without being seen controlling will never feel safe around someone who is quietly watching. The fifth way, you stop pretending. Every group has unspoken rules. We don't talk about this. We pretend that's fine. We all agree to look the other way on certain things, not out of malice, just to keep the peace. When you stop going along, when you don't laugh at what isn't funny, when you name what everyone else is ignoring, you become a threat. Not because you attacked anyone, because you broke the agreement that kept everyone comfortable. The sixth way, you started saying no. For a long time, maybe you were the easy one, always available, always accommodating. You said yes when you meant no, and people got used to that. They built their comfort around your lack of boundaries. Then you changed. You started saying no and meaning it. And the people who relied on your open door experienced that as a loss. They didn't say I miss being able to take advantage of you. They said you've changed, you're selfish, you're not the same person anymore. What they're really mourning is the end of a deal you never agreed to. A deal that only worked because you never pushed back. The seventh, and the hardest, you're moving forward and the gap is showing. When you genuinely grow, not just on the surface, but in how you see the world, you naturally drift from people who are standing still. Not because you want to leave them, just because you're in a different place now. And the people left behind feel that distance. The question it raises for them, why am I still the same, is too uncomfortable to sit with. So the mind turns it into something easier. It becomes your fault. You think you're better than everyone. You've abandoned your roots. You didn't do any of this on purpose. But their reaction was never really about you. It's about what your progress forces them to feel about their own choices. And that is a very hard thing to feel. Here's what connects all 7 of those patterns. In every single case, the hostility you're picking up on isn't a response to your behavior. It's a response to the pressure your presence creates. You're not causing it by doing something wrong. You're causing it by doing something right. Jung called this process individuation, the work of becoming a whole, honest, integrated person, of dropping the mask, facing the shadow, and moving toward your real self instead of the version everyone expects you to be. People who do this work are impossible to fully control. They don't need your approval. They don't stay in the role you assign them. They see through performances that others depend on for their sense of safety. That makes them threatening, not in a dangerous way, but in a deeply uncomfortable, existential way. So what do you actually do with all of this? The most common mistake is trying to shrink back down, to smooth out the edges, to go back to being easier and more predictable so people feel comfortable again. But making yourself smaller doesn't remove the resentment. It just makes it feel normal. Because the thing that triggered it, your honesty, your growth, your refusal to stay stuck, was never really the problem. The problem is what those things reflect back at the people around you. Let some relationships change naturally. Not every person who made sense in your old life will make sense in your new one. That's not failure. That's just honest. And stop treating every cold reaction as proof that you've done something wrong. Look for the people who move toward you when you're real, not away from you. They exist. The same quality that makes you uncomfortable to people who are hiding makes you deeply compelling to people who are searching. One reaction is fear. The other is recognition. And don't forget to look at yourself honestly too. The same patterns you've learned to see in others, the projection, the defensiveness, the quiet resentment, those live in you as well. Nobody is exempt. Everybody has a shadow. The goal isn't to become someone who sees through everyone else while staying blind to yourself. The real goal is simple and ongoing and never quite finished: to become more real, to see more clearly, to stop performing for people who wouldn't accept the truth of you anyway. Most of what looks like rejection isn't really about you. The cold shoulder, the distance, the quiet exclusion. It's about the parts of themselves they see when you walk into the room.
Like to learn more about human psychology? Like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe my channel now. Thank you for watching.